As the truth comes to light, I am faced with the most difficult decision of my life, to embrace my destiny as a princess and return to my realm, or to stay with Gabriel, the man who has captured my heart. 24 behind his eyes she needs to go, Blade announced, slamming the office door shut with a jolt. I swiveled around on my spot and observed him with a stony expression. This was not the first time he had come to me regarding Liberty. He had made it clear from day one that he hated her and didn't trust her. She was a weasel in his eyes. And now the truth was out. He despised her for lying. Since Liberty arrived, he's been a pain in my ass. Every time I met with Liberty, he would pop along and lecture me as if he was the alpha and not I. I am not a harsh man when it comes to my peck, and I will let most things. However, blatant disrespect is not one of them. My beta is supposed to counsel me, not lecture me like I'm some foolish schoolboy. He would take every opportunity to persuade me to lock her up or kick her out. My patience with him was waning. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You need to listen to me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Royal fire is dangerous. I've said this before, but now, we know. You have to do something. He continued, throwing his hands in the air dramatically. My wolf pushed at the back of my mind. Furious with my beta. He has always wanted Liberty from the moment I saw her in the dungeons. Enough. Blade. I shushed him, my tone strict. He clapped his mouth shut. Stunned. What I was doing was bizarre. He had no idea who Liberty was to me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Why are you letting her stay? His voice laced with confusion and curiosity. I turned my back to him and stared out of the window. My warriors were training outside, practicing their technique. My wolf wanted me to tell him the truth, to confide in someone. I didn't have a best friend, but if I did, that title would go to Blade. We had been through thick and thin together. Do I have to explain myself to you? I asked harshly, spinning around on the balls of my feet. He swallowed nervously, shrinking slightly under my intense stare. Still, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He didn't back down. He demanded answers. I knew he wouldn't leave until he got some. Yes, quite frankly, I think you owe me some. He countered, rolling his shoulders back. He squinted at me, mimicking my actions from earlier. I sighed through my nose, annoyed at my beta but also proud of him for not backing down. You're not going to quit, are you? He shook his head, causing strands of his sandy blonde hair to sweep across his forehead. He pushed them away and kept his hazel eyes on me. No, Alpha. I won't. Why must the liar stay? I ground my teeth together. She's my mate. That shut him up. His eyes wide and so large that one would be afraid they'd pop out. His mouth was a goji. Some would claim he resembled a cartoon character. He spluttered incoherent words, clearly not expecting that to be my answer. Blade knew what my thoughts were on mates. For the past few weeks, he had been trying to persuade me to take Eden as my Luna. Eden was a family friend. She had been trained in how to be a Luna, her parents assuming she would become one. The pack liked her a lot and some hoped she would become my Luna. But there was no way that could happen now. Blade slumped his shoulders in defeat. A crease formed in between his brows as he thought about her. It makes so much sense now, he murmured, shaking his head at his own stupidity. Does she know? I thought back to our electric kiss. I didn't know what possessed me. Over the past week, I could only think about her and her truthful words. It drove me insane. I tried to avoid her by focusing on work in the Delta, Moon Pack. Yet I couldn't get her beautiful face out of my head. From the moment I met her, I knew two things. 1, she was not a witch. And 2, she was trouble. My wolf refused to let her leave, and so I came up with a compromise. I would list her in my pack and make her translate an old book I found in a hidden box. I was curious about her. I wanted to know who she was and why she was so mysterious. Things started to change when my exterior began to soften around her. She interpreted as an open invitation to make a move on me. And then, when I turned her down, she managed to say something that hurt me. Nobody had ever managed to do that before. One day you'll realize a mate is a blessing, not a curse. You will see family makes you stronger. She was essentially telling me I was losing my chance with her. And still, I didn't know how to feel. All my life, I said I didn't need a mate. My father constantly reminded me my cat was my top priority. Nothing or nobody else should come in between that. But she wholeheartedly believed a mate, a family, would make me stronger. Better. My wolf pushed me to see her, to tell her the truth. There was no way Liberty knew we were mates. She felt the pull but believed because we were different species, our bond was not possible. And then, today I caved. I kissed her. I told her it meant nothing. But that was a lie. It definitely meant something. She knew then. She knew the truth. My cold heart stunned at how cruel I had been. She was kind and good. She didn't deserve to feel this pain. When I saw the unshed tears in her alluring green eyes, I knew I was a monster. For the first time in a long time, I felt guilt. I hurt her. My mate. Before I could try and defend myself or explain, Blade walked in with his grandfather Michael and the truth came to light. I always knew there was something special about Liberty. She had an ease and confidence about her that was so natural. The pack was wary of her, but they felt something with her. She made you want to be around her. She was extremely graceful and elegant and so beautiful. Too beautiful to be a werewolf. Vampire. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. But I also noticed she was hesitant about being here. She was still hiding something. Finding out she knew Michael 50 years ago was shocking. I managed to plaster a mask on my face as this was all revealed, but internally, a foreign emotions whirled inside of me. She never failed to surprise me. She didn't at first, but she does now. I replied to Blade's question. Blade lowered himself into the seat opposite me and combed a hand through his messy hair. This information was a lot for him. He discovered his grandfather had a special relationship with a woman he hates. Will she stay with us then? Are you going to make her our Luna? She was my mate, so the title was hers if she wanted it. But things were a lot more complicated than that. Knowing who she was made things difficult. She was royalty. She had duties in her own realm. She'd eventually return. I'm not sure. I replied. Honestly, my mask slipped momentarily. I found myself wanting to open up to the man I was closest with. She's hiding something still. When Blade lifted his gaze to me, there wasn't hatred anymore. He couldn't hate my mate, the woman who was supposed to be our Luna. Sure, there was still dislike, but I knew he would try and accept her. That was one of the many reasons I appreciated him. She must be in danger. He voiced my suspicions aloud. That was the only thing that made sense. Liberty was running from something or someone. What are you going to do? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfading patience, enthusiasm. Blade's voice interrupted my train of thought. Pinching my lips together, I sat in my comfortable desk chair. I don't know. I answered. Honestly, at tea that evening, I sat in my office. Alone. I hadn't seen Liberty since the talk in the kitchen earlier today. To distract me from her and to let her have space, I remained holed up in my office. Kerry came to collect my tray and bowed her neck. Submissively. I recall how close she was to Liberty, and so I ordered her to stay. Yes, Alpha, she asked in a soft, wavering voice, trying to not look scared. I observed her, taking in her dark eyes and hair. There was something lurking behind her eyes. I just didn't know what. What do you know about Liberty? I got straight to the point. She blinked, taken aback, but was quick to recover. When she came to my pack a few years ago, I knew she was hiding something. I still think she is. But nothing has happened that leads me to believe she's dangerous. She probably has a dark past. Kerry paused, Frowning to herself, she twiddled D with her fingers, nervously. Whether it was from the question or from my intense stare, it was probably the latter. Why are you asking me this? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Did she do something wrong? She feigned concern, but I wondered if she really was worried about Liberty. No, she hasn't. I wanted an outsider's opinion of her. I answered, nonchalantly. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my eyes on her face. She couldn't meet my eyes. It was disrespectful for a pack member to look directly into my eyes. Oh, she muttered herself. Liberty is nice. She works hard on the book you gave her. We don't see each other that much. I narrowed my eyes at her suspiciously. I heard she helped you at Eden's party. Gauging her reaction, she snapped her dark eyes to me and then realized her mistake. Normally, I would reprimand her for locking eyes with an alpha, but that would make her close in on herself. Carrie audibly swallowed. That's right. She confirmed as if I was questioning her, not stating facts. I was upset and she consoled me. I arched an eyebrow, expecting her to reveal more. Was she kind to you? Good to you? Carrie mashed her lips together. Why, yes. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She was nice. Carrie, I want you to do something for me, I said suddenly, surprising myself. She straightened her posture, eager to please her alpha. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She replied, obediently, I want you to support Liberty, and if she says anything alarming, I want you to report back to me. I revealed. Steadily, she nodded her head. Yes, Alpha. Carrie picked up the tray of food and exited the room, her shoulders tense. Asking her to do that was wrong, but I wasn't at a good place with Liberty and I wouldn't be for a while. Rubbing my face tiredly, I released a yawn. I had not been getting a lot of sleep recently. I was extremely stressed about Delta, Moon and my mate, who now knew the truth. Something told me I had many more restless nights to come. Trying to not think about her was like trying not to breathe. She was somehow worming her way into my heart. I hated her for it. I knew when I met my mate that everything would change. That was why I wanted to keep her at a distance. I wanted to keep her away from my heart. When the sun started to set, I packed up my things and left my office. A few members were stalking the halls, retiring for the night. They all bared their necks to me, wishing me a good night. My room was located on the same level as Liberty's. I wanted to keep her close, just in case. As I passed her room, my ears tuned into any noises made by her. She was in her room, her breathing was light and even. She was asleep. My wolf itched to enter her room and curl up beside her. He had been deprived of a mate for so long, and now that we found her, I tried to keep her away. He hated that. Despised me, in fact. Taking a deep breath, I impulsively cracked the door open slightly and peeked through. I spotted her immediately. She was lying on her back with one hand on her stomach. Her light blonde hair was scattered all over the pillow, fanning around her. My wolf settled in the back of my head at the sight of her. She was a beauty, a goddess. Despite my reluctance to want her, I wished her the best in the future. She didn't deserve me. When she stirred, I closed the door hastily, making sure I was being quiet, and then entered my own cold room. It was a simple place that had everything I needed. I rarely spent time in my room. There was no need to. After unchanging and having a quick shower, I collapsed into my bed. My eyes stared at the ceiling. I pictured Liberty, who was across the hall from me, sleeping peacefully. If she was beside me in bed, would I sleep like that too? 25 truth hurts. I overheard Gabriel's conversation with Blake from the moment he admitted we were mates. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I fled with the conversation still on my mind. Gabriel's attitude towards me was certainly different. Some could interpret it as him fighting his feelings for me. Did he even have feelings for me? He had plenty of opportunities to tell me the truth. When he found out I knew, his reaction was not what I wanted. He looked like a deer caught in headlights. I left the pack house and ventured into the gardens. I was still shocked I had seen Michael after so long. It was surreal, seeing a man I once romantically liked 50 years ago. He had aged so much. He lived his life well. Despite the painful pang in my heart, I was happy for him. He met his mate, fell in love, and built a family. Was I doomed to live alone or with the awful Princess Eel? It was cold outside, but that didn't deter me. I stalked along the path, barely noticing the other wolves. Who cared what they thought anymore? My head felt dizzy from all of the imposing thoughts. When Morpheus next visited, I would have to tell him what I had done. He was not going to be happy. He was going to be furious. As king, it was his duty to enforce the law about our existence. I passed Eden's garden and stared at the flowers sadly. Even though I didn't like Eden that much, that didn't mean I couldn't feel sympathy for her. I was lucky enough to still have my family. I stayed there for a while, letting peace overcome me. And then I ate tea in the dining hall. Noting Gabriel's absence, I returned to my room not long after and slipped into my bed. Tiredness washed over me quickly. Today's events had been too intense. My dreams were filled with images of my worlds, vast landscapes and beautiful creatures. I imagined my brothers and parents at home, greeting me. It made me upset. When would I be able to return home? The next morning, I received a strange greeting from Carrie. She flashed me a small smile and brought me breakfast. I eyed her suspiciously. The last talk we had didn't seem to go over that well. Thank you, Carrie. I thanked her. Slowly, she flashed me another unnatural smile. I had never seen her act like that before. Why was she suddenly acting so nice? What are you going to do today? Loitering in my room, her eyes did a sweep of my room, pausing on the book. I noted this but didn't question her. I do that later. I shrugged my shoulders and tasted the cup of coffee. I was surprised she remembered my breakfast order. She used to bring my simple stuff when I first arrived, but that was a while ago. My plan was to hopefully contact my brother, but I couldn't tell her that. I was a half-witch. That made me wonder if Sabrina and Blade would treat me differently. From what I heard yesterday, it sounded like Blade would try and be kinder to me. That seemed like a foreign concept to me. Could he really pull it off? Carrie pinched her lips in disappointment and then left. I tried to not think about her strange nature too much. I enjoyed my breakfast and then went for a shower. Once I felt fully refreshed, I left my room and wandered the halls, humming a soft tune that I grew up with. Distracted with my thoughts, I failed to spot Gabriel trudging towards me, his grey eyes stuck on my phone. Staring at him warily, was he coming to tell me he changed his mind and wanted me gone? Or was he going to reject me? He stopped in front of me. He was so close his breath was fanning my face. The smell of his minty breath set my mind into overload. I wanted to have his lips on mine again. Now that I knew the truth, my world had shifted forever. Gabriel, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. All formal greetings gone, his grey eyes roamed around my face, drinking me in. I wouldn't let his intense gaze get the better of me. I was still furious about his deception. I would be for a while. Liberty, I need to talk to you. He got straight to the point, seeming less certain of himself. It was an odd sight to see, one I relished in. I blinked once and then twice, mashing my lips together. Eventually, I succumbed to my curiosity. Instead of guiding me to his office, he led me outside. We sat on a bench away from prying eyes, where we could talk in peace. I lowered myself onto the wooden bench gracefully, conscious of him so close. What do you want to talk about, Gabriel? Rather harshly, he didn't react to my cold tone in any way, making me wonder if he could even feel hurt. Gabriel released a long breath and leaned forwards, placing his elbows on his upper legs. He was acting almost nervous again. I quite liked seeing him like this. It made me feel powerful for once. I need to. He paused and swallowed audibly. I want to talk about what we are. The bond. I felt my heart accelerate in my chest. We needed to address the extremely large elephant in the room. Swallowing my throat, I showed him he had my full, undivided attention. I was desperate to hear him say anything. Selfishly, I wanted him to show his feelings. I needed to know he could feel something warm. For too long, I'd seen him as a stone, cold wolf who didn't know how to be human. This was my opportunity to see him be something else. Blowing out a tense breath, he dragged a hand through his luscious brown hair. I'm sorry. This is difficult for me. I can see. I noted, casually. He blew out another breath and grabbed onto my hands. Sparks erupted onto my skin. The sensation was truly spectacular. Liberty. I never wanted a mate. He began, immediately digging a knife into my heart. Was this supposed to be an apology speech? Because if it was, then he was going about this the wrong way. Seeing my dejected face. My parents weren't mates. You see, my father gave up his mate because she was human. She had a life with another man. It made him bitter and angry, so he mated with my mother, who never met her mate. It was intriguing to hear his story. He was so closed off. This must take a lot of effort for him to tell me these things. I appreciate him telling me this. Their marriage was difficult. They lived to serve the pack and produce an heir. There was no love. He continued, his voice never wavering. I could not imagine growing up with parents in a loveless marriage. My parents were completely devoted to each other. It was a grand sight to see their love shine so brightly. My father often told me that you didn't need a mate. He honed in on how they were only there to cause issues. He said my true purpose should be to look after the pack. The moment I saw you, Liberty, I was conflicted. You awoke feelings in me that I never thought I could possess. In that gown, you were beautiful. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfading clichés enthusiasm. But I didn't want you. Another direct blow to my heart. I had to remain strong. If this was a rejection speech, then I would have my head held high. Try as you might. I refused to listen to my wall for my heart. All I could think about was my father and his grave words. He loosened a breath. I knew you were different. You seemed too powerful and engaging to be a witch. He suspected I wasn't who I claimed to be. As my mate, he would have been the only person who could tell I wasn't telling the truth. When you confronted me in my office, I was at a complete loss. A part of me wanted to accept you, but I let my fear hold me back. Thus, I acted in a cold, unforgivable manner. That day was still fresh in my mind. He was so cruel. I had half a mind to leave him. Princess Eel could have paled against Gabriel that day. But that kiss, it sealed the deal. I didn't know it would reveal what we were. That kiss was extraordinary. Liberty, he told me, intensely. You are extraordinary. I had received many compliments in my long lifespan, but having one from Gabriel made my toes curl. I don't know why you came here if you are running from something, but I'm glad you came here. Inching closer to me, he was so close I could feel the heat emanating from him. I didn't realize I had stopped breathing until a burning sensation swirled in my lungs. Sucking in a long breath, I watched with anticipation as he lifted his hand up and hesitantly rested it on my cheek. He tenderly touched me, afraid I would step out of his grasp at any moment. I want to try. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Milburn, heartfelt thanks for your unfading clichés enthusiasm. I want to try, he declared, romantically. A man who had never been in love, who refused to let love into his heart, could be so romantic. Who would have thought it? This was what I wanted from my mate. This is why I ran away from Prince Aziel. I had hoped I saw love so pure and everlasting. I want to try too, I replied. Softly, I gazed into his grey orbs and finally saw what he had been hiding. He was showing me his feelings. Slowly, we embraced each other in a hug. We were both unsure and cautious. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The hug was stiff and plain awkward, but we soon melted into each other's arms. He felt like home. I have to tell you why I left. My voice was muffled, but I knew he understood me clearly. Pulling away from Gabriel slightly, I faced him with the bravest face I could manage. I'm on the run from my fiancé. He stilled and shuffled away from me ever so slightly. It's not what you think. I've been betrothed to him since birth. It wasn't my choice. We met at our engagement ball, and I discovered who wicked he was. He's the future king. His parents raised him to be a misogynistic monster with little regard for women. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. So cruel to me at the ball. The thought of spending my life with him and never meeting me was heartbreaking. I had to run away. My eyes pleaded with his to understand where I was coming from. I did not want to be with Prince Aziel. My brother has visited me a few times and has told me that Prince Aziel has been ruthlessly hunting me down. He's in this realm and will stop at nothing to marry me. I added in displeasure. Gabriel blew out a long breath, squinting at me. It was as if he was trying to work something out about me. What do you want to do? He turned the tables on me, staring into my green orbs. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I don't want to be with him. He gestured for me to continue. Go on. I want to stay here. 26 Fight from the Alpha Gabriel. A familiar, hard voice broke us apart. Blinking, I cleared my throat and stepped away from Gabriel, keeping my face neutral. I just told him I wanted to stay with him. Did I mean it? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I did. I have been dreaming about finding my since I was a little girl. Beta Blade stood with his arms folded behind his back, his hazel eyes set on his alpha. They only briefly flickered to me, and to my utter surprise, there was no malice in them. I was shocked to see him, especially after I just had an intimate moment with Gabriel. Yes, Gabriel asked, clearing his throat. He didn't even seem perturbed by his beta's presence. There wasn't even a drop of annoyance in his tone. I would have thought he'd be pissed if his beta interrupted this delicate moment. Taking a leaf out of Gabriel's textbook, I masked all of my emotions and rolled my shoulders back. Beta Blade briefly flickered his hazel eyes to me and then back to his alpha. We have a visitor, he informed him. Remaining stoic, he reminded me of Gamma Gomez at this moment. What kind of visitor? Blade. Gabriel quizzed, pinning Blade down with his piercing eyes. Blade must be used to Gabriel's antics by now, since he didn't seem at all frightened. I'm not sure. He says he needs to see you. Urgently. Blade answered, just as clueless as. Sighing through his clenched teeth, Gabriel beckoned me to follow him, honored that he was willing to let me sit in this important meeting. I followed after him and Blade. Pack members stared at me as I passed them. Their eyes first landed on Gabriel and his stern expression, and then they drifted to me. I wondered what they thought. Did they think Gabriel is going to punish me or something? Blade opened the door to the office, where Eden and Gomez were already sat on the sofas to the left. A tall stranger with light brown hair stood with his back to us. I stepped in, more focused on Eden's glare than the stranger. Does she know the truth? Has she always known? Gabriel rounded the large desk table and faced the stranger whilst Blade closed the door behind me. He pursed his lips and came to stand beside me. What was he doing? Who are you and why are you here? Gabriel asked, getting straight to the point. He definitely wasn't someone to beat around the bush. The strangers spun around, turning their back to Gabriel. That would be seen as a sign of disrespect in this community. In fact, it would be seen as that in any community. However, before Gabriel could show his anger or aggravation, I gasped. My hands flew up to my face as tears brimmed in the corners of my eyes. I whispered, completely and utterly shocked. Morpheus, green eyes softened at the sight of me. He opened his arms, inviting me for a hug. It felt like it had been so long since I last saw him. My life had been so busy recently and I was emotionally exhausted. I needed someone from my family to help me through this confusing and difficult journey. He was the king of my world, but he was also my oldest brother. I knew you needed me. Libby, he murmured, in his smooth and commanding voice. I wrapped my dainty and pale arms around his torso and buried my face into his neck. He smelt like home. Why are you? You shouldn't be here, I said as I stepped away from him. Gabriel came around the table so that he was standing beside me as well. He seemed less confused than everyone else. Well, after I found out this tool has been lying to you, I had to come, he commented. Flippantly, my eyes widened as respect again. Thankfully, Gabriel didn't show any anger towards my brother. He knew who Morpheus was and was wary about saying the wrong thing. Morpheus was stronger, high-ranked, and related to me. If he wanted to get in my good graces, he had to be respectful to my brother. Also, Morpheus knew we were mates. Was he spying on me? He must have been. How sneaky. Whoa, hang on a minute. Blade stepped in, defending his alpha. Who was the tallest male here? Stared Blade down. His powerful green eyes started to glow a golden color. This happened whenever Morpheus was about to use his powers. He was the strongest in our family. He was even stronger than Dad. Blade mashed his lips together and slowly brought his hand down. Blade, Gabriel warned, his voice rumbling. It made shivers crawl down my spine. Blade snapped his hazel eyes to Gabriel in disbelief but didn't argue. He quickly placed his hands behind his back, staring at my brother. Morpheus was pleased Gabriel did this. Why are you here? Gabriel repeated his question, firmly. Morpheus flickered his eyes to me, disregarding my mate completely. I told you I would warn you. Libby, Azazel is in this realm. It's only a matter of time until he'll find you. He gave me the dreaded news. Remorsefully, my shoulders slumped in defeat and stress. That was all I needed. Firstly, Kerry was acting strangely. Secondly, I was having problems with my now. My past has finally caught up with me. Where is he? I'm not sure. He refused to tell us where he was going. But when I last saw him, there was an unsettling glint in his eye. In Thebe, I've never seen him like this before. He looked extremely dangerous and volatile, showing his concern for me. Shit, I muttered, dragging a shaky hand from my hair. I couldn't let him find me here. Prince Azazel would wreak havoc here. You're not leaving, Gabriel suddenly declared. I opened my mouth to protest, but my brother beat me to it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. She's not. If you truly want to be with my sister, then you will fight this battle with her. Causing me to do a double take. Morpheus wanted Gabriel to help. Did he not see how bad this would be for Gabriel and his pack? Sure, they were a very strong pack, but this was Prince Azazel we were talking about. He was a fight. I warned in a low and threatening voice. Libby, you can't keep running. You finally found your who is willing to fight for you. Sure, he was a complete dickhead at first, but he wants to stand beside you. Morpheus argued, inching closer to me. Who exactly are we fighting? Gomez questioned, taking the spotlight and Morpheus's attention away from me. I exhaled discreetly, oblivious to Gabriel's intuitive eyes on me. Prince Azazel is from a dark fae. He is a part of our realm, but not the light side. Libby was supposed to marry him, but she ran away, causing a political catastrophe. Kissed and embarrassed, Azazel has been on the hunt for her. He has some of his father's army following him through the realms, my brother explained, making sure to highlight how dangerous Prince Azazel is. Eden, who had remained quiet throughout the talk, finally made her thoughts known. Scoffing, she rose to her feet gracefully. You're kidding, right? Do you expect us to fight this prince just because of her? She spat, glaring at me icily. The atmosphere suddenly dropped drastically. I had made it perfectly clear I didn't want a pack to fight this battle for me. I made it known in front of her. She was saying these words to get a reaction out of me, for someone so well put together. She was suddenly very easily losing her control. Eden, you have no say in this. Gabriel snapped. Harshly, she flinched. Visibly, her dark eyes began to shine with unshed tears, but that didn't stop her from making her thoughts known. Yeah, you made sure of that. Alpha Gabriel. There was so much hurt and animosity in her eyes. I knew she wanted to become the Luna of this pack, but I was now realizing she loved Gabriel as well. It was like a blow to my gut. I knew what it was like to want him but not receive his love. I knew how agonizing it was. Eden, take yourself out of this room now, Gabriel ordered, using his alpha voice. Having no choice but to obey, she dragged her feet out of the room, glowering at Gabriel and myself as she left. Once she was gone, I loosened a breath. Do you let all of your wolves talk to you like that? Morpheus asked, quirking an eyebrow. Gabriel shot him a glare, silently telling my brother that he was taking it too far. Anyways, if there will be a fight of some kind, I won't leave you alone. That is if you choose to fight for Libby. Morpheus continued, waiting for Gabriel's answer. So far, he was assuming. Gabriel shifted his grey eyes to me, staring into the depths of my green orbs. Hidden behind my anticipation, there was desperation. I wanted him on my side, fighting for me, but I also didn't want his pack to get hurt because of me. Yes, we will be, Gabriel announced in a strong voice. Morpheus's eyes lit up with approval. Good. We will help you as much as we can, but my family has to be careful. We don't want to start a full-on war with Azil's people. They are not nice people. He could say that again. 2 of my brothers will be staying here to protect Libby and help you train and prepare. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Wait, what? I interrupted. Well, I was going to ask the twins originally, but they are currently preoccupied back home, helping me fight Azil's parents. Morpheus told me, rolling his eyes. I bet that was Mom's idea. She wanted them to act seriously. So instead, Declan and Jacob are going to be coming. I was excited to finally see more of my brothers, but also nervous about them seeing me in this setting. You told them. I had too, Morpheus answered. Grunly, I guess he couldn't keep the secret forever. Do Mom and Dad know too? He nodded his head. Sadly, they hope you're doing okay. They miss you a lot. Libby, I sniffled and blinked away my tears. I miss them so much too. Even Mom's annoying whining. Right. That's everything I've wanted to say for now. I shall return soon. If you need me, you know what to do. Libby, Morpheus said, clapping his hands. I hugged him again, relishing in this comfort. He was gone in the blink of an eye, leaving me with the 3 highest-ranking wolves in this pack. Blade blew out a breath, whilst Gabriel and Gomez remained stoic. I knew Blade wasn't too keen on fighting against Prince Azil, but he was trying to be more supportive of me. A pack will always fight for their Luna. Gabriel. I said his name slowly, bringing my eyes up to his. I let them show all of my thoughts, including how I was okay if he didn't want to do this. He barely knew me. I've made my decision, he replied, rather coldly. I tried to not let it affect me. This was what he was like. Plus, I was strong. I wouldn't let a man, albeit my, reduce me to something pathetic. So far since discovering he was mated to me, I've been acting weak. Whilst my father taught me to be vulnerable around my mate, he also told me to not let him walk all over me. At this rate, Gabriel will be doing some Irish jig over my heart. When can we expect your brothers? Gomez directed this question at me, noticing the tension between his alpha and me. I shrugged my shoulders. Clueless. I have no idea. We didn't have to wait long. My brothers, Jacob and Declan, appeared through a beaming portal in the room. Jacob was wearing a soft smile on his face, his arms open wide. Declan kept his face placid, but the corners of his lips did quirk upwards at the sight of me. My favorite sibling. Jacob greeted as I enveloped him in a bone, crushing hug. He too smelled of home. My hug with Declan was stiff at first, but he soon relaxed in my arms. Declan was the most reserved out of us, so it made it difficult to relate to him. I still loved him to bits though. After stepping away from them, I introduced them to the werewolves. Gabriel's grey eyes dart between my two brothers wary. He nodded his head respectfully at them, and I wondered if he wanted to impress them too. Jacob's eyebrows shot up at Gabriel. There was no doubt in my mind that Morpheus told him everything about Gabriel. Jacob is the most protective out of all of my brothers, so it will be interesting to find out how he presents himself in front of Gabriel. Alpha Gabriel. Jacob said his name. Patronizing lie. A glint of humor glittered in his similar green orbs. I held a breath as I watched my favorite brother approach Gabriel with confidence. Jacob didn't feel as intimidating as Morpheus, but he was just as powerful. Jacob stood toe to toe with Gabriel. They had a similar, heightened build. Anxiously waiting for Jacob to say whatever he wanted to say. Do you want to make my sister your Luna? 27 in my head. He was awkward. I sat at Gabriel's table at his insistence with my two older brothers and Blade. I could feel the pack's burning eyes on my form. I didn't have to tune into their conversations to know what they were talking about. Why is the half, which sitting with the alpha? I thought he was going to kick her out. They were probably also wondering who the two ethereal men were. Does Morpheus even care about our secret getting out? Because the pack is going to have questions we won't be able to brush off. What does father think of this? Surely he wouldn't be happy with this turn of events. Then again, he was always so supportive of me. Gabriel's grey eyes were honed in on me. He wouldn't look away from me, no matter how much I wanted him to. My brothers were sat next to each other, casually eating their food. Their green eyes darted between my mate and me. Everyone else in the pack seemed equally confused by the strangers. So, what are your training plans? Jacob asked Gabriel, munching on his food. This was a test. He wanted to know what Gabriel's strategy was so that he could make an evaluation of what kind of person Gabriel was. Jacob, I warned in a low voice, squinting my eyes. Jacob rolled his eyes, refusing to back down. Libby, he didn't want you. I need to know if his feelings have changed. I glanced at Gabriel, who remained cool and calm. His grey eyes remained on Jacob, exuding confidence. He didn't seem affected by my brothers at all. Was he remaining strong and stoic to impress them, or was he really unaffected? I like to think the latter. Sure, Gabriel was a tank. He was so hard to get through to, but that didn't mean it was impossible. He opened up to me and told me about his past. He showed emotion. I had to have faith. Jacob, I'm being serious. Aggressively. My eyes were narrowed into slits. He was my favorite brother, but he sure knew how to push my buttons. I appreciated his concern, but I was an adult too. I was old enough to make my own decisions. But out of it, Jacob stared me down. Eventually, he dragged his eyes away, giving up for now. I knew I was only delaying the inevitable with this conversation. However, I'd rather argue with my brother in a secluded place, where there weren't any prying eyes. Blade and his sister watched the scene unfold curiously. The only people who seemed nonchalant about the whole situation were Gabriel and Gomez. Then again, I expected that much from them, especially Gomez. After shoving the food down my throat as gracefully as I could muster, I excused myself along with Gabriel. Not wanting to leave me alone with my mate, Jacob rose to his feet, declaring he was finished too, unaware of what to do in this unfamiliar place. Declan also jumped to his feet, wiping the corners of his lips carefully. What are you doing? My jaw ticking. I just wanted to talk to Gabriel. Alone. Why would nobody let that happen? We need to know where we're staying. I think we should have a tour of the house, don't you? Jacob explained, not even bothering to hide his triumphant smirk. Gabriel's grey eyes darted between the two of us. Once again, I wondered what went through his mind. What was he thinking of our squabbling? Did he perceive me as immature because of it? Fine. I huffed. gesturing for Gabriel to lead the way, slightly quirking an eyebrow, almost humorously. Gabriel led the way. Jacob knocked shoulders with me as we began our trek through the large house. Throughout the tour, Jacob would make random comments about certain artifacts or paintings we passed. Gabriel barely spoke, only when he needed to. It was so typical of him, and it annoyed the hell out of Jacob. Declan never spoke, and that suddenly made him my favorite brother. When it came to room assigning, Gabriel placed them a floor below me. The look on Jacob's face when this revealed to him was hilarious, to say the least. Still, Jacob could teleport into my room if he wanted to. I said goodbye to my brothers, who decided to talk about safety plans, and walked to my room with Gabriel. Finally, I had alone time with him. I'm sorry about them. I apologized, feeling the need to. He was still on the edge about this whole mate bond at least. That was what I was picking up from him, and I didn't want my brother's actions to send him tipping off the edge. Gabriel shifted his intense gaze to me. Apologies are not necessary. Liberty. I shrugged my shoulders. Still, they're not usually like this. I guess recent events have made them so protective. Morpheus must have told them how it was. I hoped he would sugarcoat the whole ordeal. Liking your sister's mate is never an easy thing for people. I understand it takes time. He reasoned. Casually, I hummed in agreement. You're very calm about all of this. You should be panicking right now. Princess ears. Panicking will get us nowhere. He interrupted me. If I panic, I can risk losing you and my pack. For that comment alone, I admired him even more. He had many faults, but one of his greatest strengths was his compassion for the people he cared for. I want to tell you everything I know about Vi. I want you to be prepared. I told him, abruptly, coming to stop in front of him. He peered down at me, his eyes sweeping over every inch of my face. I could feel my heart gallop in my chest. He had the ability to make my whole body alight. I wanted him to touch me. I wanted him to be closer to me. Should I want these things when I'm supposed to be mad at him? His eyes dark and ever so slightly. I could feel my heart beating erratically in my chest. Unconsciously, my body shifted closer to his. I wanted to feel his warm breath on my skin. I wanted it to tickle and lick my skin. I murmured, hypnotized. He seemed to be in the same boat as me. His grey eyes couldn't look away from my face. Or more specifically, my lips. Yes, Liberty. Huskily. Yes, Liberty. What do you want? I couldn't say the real answer. I wasn't ready to accept his apology yet. I wanted him to wallow in regret. Blinking, I leaned back, creating distance between us. My breaths came out in short bursts, and I could feel the crackling, electric atmosphere. His eyebrows knitted together at my sudden coldness, but he quickly masked any confusion. He was good at hiding his true feelings. He was a master. I want to go back to my room, I said instead, clearing my throat loudly. Gabriel stepped back from me, which caused my heart to tug, and shook his head. Strands of his silky dark hair strayed over his forehead, but not close enough to his eyes. Liberty, stop thinking about him. I needed to clear my head of him right now. I wanted to be with him, and I hoped his ideas were changing but I had to protect myself. I had to make sure he was certain. Okay. He nodded his head, stoically, pursing my lips together at his cordial reply. I spin around on the balls of my heels and saunter off. When I returned to my room, I slumped against the door and released a long, tiring sigh. I had to be careful. My brother didn't think he wanted me yet. That was what I thought, but the way he was staring at me, our proximity, and the bond, it must have had some effect on him. He can try and hide his feelings, but he can't do it forever. Things were getting crazy. Just over a month ago, I was living blissfully in my own realm, ignoring my fate. And now, I'm here, with my mate, praying that my betrothed will not kill my mate and his pack. What was Morpheus thinking? This is too much for Gabriel and his pack. They are strong people. There's no denying it, but against his eel. And Delta, Moon, they wouldn't stand a real chance. Gabriel claims it's fine, but I'm not going to allow his pack members to walk to their deaths. I might be their Luna, that they know that yet, but that doesn't mean they should lay down their life for me. How would Gabriel even convince them to do this? I knew the Alpha's word was powerful, but they still had free will. I dragged my feet towards the inn, sweet, and started running the bath. The water splashed into the pristine tub. Whilst it filled up, I poured a whole bottle of soap into the rising water. When it was full, I turned the taps off and stripped. The water was delightfully warm and inviting. I sunk into it easily, causing ripples to flutter through the water. A sigh of contentment parted lips. I closed my eyes for a moment, saying to myself I would open them in 10 seconds. 10 seconds, my ass. As soon as I closed my eyes, I was gone. I drifted off into the abyss, my head resting against the cold tub. A large and familiar chandelier hung above my head. Its bright light twinkled, casting a warm glow over the room. The room was packed with pack members, eating and talking animatedly. The atmosphere was joyous. Beside me sat Gabriel, who was watching his pack with soft eyes. Sensing my heated eyes on his face, he shifted them to me. "I'm worried." My lips moved. I had no control over the words that were pouring out of me. The grey in his eyes swirled with determination. He was convinced we stood a chance. "Did we? I know what we're doing," he replied, calmly. How he could be so calm and stoic right now was beyond me. This celebration would be the last happy moment for a long time. We should be preparing for war, training hard. Even Blade thought so. This was the first time I doubted Gabriel's judgment. We're going to win. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I watched him lift his glass of wine up to his lips. He took a large sip of the red wine, aware of my watchful eyes. Movement behind Gabriel, by the hidden door in the room, caught my attention. A figure with dark hair flew into the room before I could identify them. Suddenly, Gabriel coughed. I snapped my orbs back to him, fighting the urge to investigate. It was probably one of the servers. "Libby," Sabrina's sweet voice coaxed me out of my thoughts. "Can you pass me some chicken? Please." I went to grab the plate of roast chicken when a round of violent coughs escaped Gabriel's lips. Jolting in my comfortable seat, I stared at him fearfully. Something felt wrong. "Gabriel." I whispered his name, placing my hand on his firm back. His grey eyes were bloodshot and blood started oozing out of his mouth. I gasped, jumping to my feet. The hall fell silent and people either watched the scene unfold worriedly or rose to action. One of the pack doctors, an older man with strands of grey hair, sprinted over to us with a small medical bag. He threw it on the table and immediately began examining Gabriel. What's happening?" I stuttered, holding onto Gabriel's shirt for dear life. He continued to cough out more blood, staining his white top and the peach-colored tablecloths. Quiet screams started erupting. The doctor held a tiny torch to Gabriel's blinking eyes. Abruptly, he leaned back, his face ashen. "Doctor, what's wrong?" I demanded, pressing my side into Gabriel's. He was hunched over. It was like he was dying. No, that wasn't happening. That wouldn't happen. He couldn't die on me. "Doctor," Blade yelled at the shocked doctor. His hazel eyes glowed arc. Aggressive color. "Do something." Gabriel breathed and sharply and jerked backward, leaning his head against the chair. His face was smeared with his blood and strokes of tears were visible on his face. I fisted my fingers and cautiously swept strands of his wet hair away from his forehead. The doctor slowly stretched his fingers to Gabriel's neck and checked his pulse. We all waited with bated breath, praying whatever happened to Gabriel had passed. "Is it over?" I asked him, concerned. It felt like my heart was shattering into millions of pieces. The unbearable I was feeling in my chest wasn't mine, it was my mate's. The doctor hesitantly pulled his fingers away and shook his head, solemnly. "He's been poisoned," he eventually declared. Gravely, my chest expanded in agony as a knife tore through me, figuratively, as I paused, gathering my voice together. Is there an antidote? The doctor licked his lips. I'm not sure what the poison is. Without that knowledge, there's nothing I can give him. We can't just sit here and do. Gabriel went into another coughing fit, which was worse than before. Horrifically, all I could do was stare as my mate continued coughing. In a desperate attempt to save him, I grabbed the sides of his face and conjured up my magic. I thought of one word over and over again. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Heal him. I felt my magic spark to life. It streamed from me to him. Just as I was about to slump my shoulders in relief, a surge of power bounced from him back to me. It dawned on me that my magic was rejecting the poison in him. It wouldn't let me save him. It's not working, I said in a panic. Oh God, it's not working. Please, no. I held on to Gabriel as he had his final breaths. He cracked his eyes open weakly and stared into the depths of my jade orbs. There was an emotion in them I had been hunting for since the moment we met. Love. Then, he took his last breath. His body fell backward. Motionless. He was dead. I jolted awake, my body scrambling out of the bathtub. Erratically, my heart pounded in my chest. I was on the verge of a panic attack. The vision I just had all too clear in my mind. It wasn't real. I had to repeat it over and over like a mantra. I had to make myself believe it wasn't real. Shadows danced along the tiled walls, creeping closer to me. That was when I heard harsh, overlapping whispers. They were all saying the same thing but at different times. I hastily wrapped a towel on my shivering body, darting my eyes around the room wildly. That didn't feel like a dream, it felt too real. Was it a warning? Did somebody plant the future into my head? I tried to comprehend what the whispers were saying. They grew frantic, as did my worry. There was something I had to know. Are you trying to warn me? Is Gabriel in danger? I stammered, clutching the towel tightly. I had never experienced something like this before. I squeezed my eyes shut and recalled the vision. Just before Gabriel started coughing, I saw someone's dark hair. I assumed it was a server, but what if it wasn't? The last thing Gabriel had was the wine. Somebody tampered with it. Is someone plotting to kill Gabriel? I repeated, firmer this time. I was talking to the air like a crazy person. I could have snorted at the craziness of the situation if I wasn't so freaked out. Nothing well. Besides, Aziel had managed to get to me as much as this. Will this happen soon? The whisper stopped, and so did the shadows. Unsure of what was happening. Was this a yes? Suddenly, the shadows vanished and the room returned to its normal color. There was no longer an icy chill in the air. Libby, a voice called from the other side of the door, followed by a soft knock. It was Jacob. I blinked and drank in the room. Confused, my eyes flickered down to my body and my shaking hands. What had just happened? How did I get out of the tub? When I tried to press my memory for answers, I hit a mental block. I couldn't remember what just happened. Yeah, I'm coming, I shouted back, shaking my head. All of the stress must be getting to my head. 28 training. The next day, I went to the training grounds with my brothers. My brother's appearance was still a ground, breaking thing for the pack. Everyone was now wondering what was happening and why the Alpha was letting newcomers in. I completely understood their confusion and hoped Gabriel would reveal the truth soon. He told me earlier this morning he didn't want any of us to tell his pack who we were until later. They were only allowed to know that Delta, Moon, was planning to attack soon. We fabricated a small lie that my brothers were highly trained warriors who once trained with the king himself, King Layton. At the training grounds, I stretched with my brothers. They eyed the clump of wolves on the field, creating a plan. Jacob stepped forward, taking the lead. You all must be aware of the upcoming threat. Delta, Moon is gathering an army and preparing for a fight. They want to eliminate you. That cannot happen. My brother paused dramatically, holding everyone's attention. We are here to help you train. A burly man stepped out from the crowd, his arms crossed defensively with a cocked eyebrow. And who are you to think you should train us? We have a head warrior. Jacob let the dig slide. He wouldn't let somebody crawl under his skin so easily. I have been alive longer than any of you and have trained with the most aced fighters. I could whip your ass in less than 3 seconds. Instead of giving up, the man took the challenge. Go on then. I sighed in disappointment. We were wasting valuable time. We shouldn't be having an alpha male fight right now. Okay. Jacob shrugged his shoulders and stalked over to the wolf casually. Everyone else moved away and formed a semi-circle. They were all rooting for their pack member, but even Jacob was telling lies. Jacob squared his shoulders and beckoned for the wolf to attack. The burly man didn't waste a second and charged at my older brother. His cockiness would be his downfall. Jacob slipped past the man easily and used a technique, only used our realm to plat the man onto the ground. Gasps of shock erupted around us. The attack was so quick and smooth, conducted in less than 3 seconds. Someone in the crowd stuttered, his voice a mixture of fear and awe. Your head warrior is busy with Alpha Gabriel. He won't be able to train you. It's clear you all have skills, but not enough to stand against Delta, Moon. They have a secret weapon up their sleeve. Jacob hollered to the pack. Boris lie. He was annoyed we were wasting precious time too. What's the weapon? A young male asked, knitting his eyebrows together. I shared a look with Jacob, telling him not to reveal it yet. Jacob sighed and feigned aggravation. We don't know yet. I could sense their worry. It hurt me that they were all scared like this. I was their Luna and I wanted to protect them. So, does anyone have any more questions? They all shook their heads. I knew they had more questions, but they were all itching to learn new skills. Jacob clapped his hands together loudly and barked orders at everyone. We were all split into 3 groups, men, women, and wolves under the age of 20. I went with the women and acted unbothered by their curious and judgmental eyes. Amongst the group was Eden, who stared at me with ire. I sighed mentally, aware that I never sorted things out with her. She had so many reasons to hate me and no reasons to like me. She always knew who I was and had the power to reveal it any second. However, the only thing stopping her was Gabriel. She knew it would ruin things for her if he told the pack. Why are you here training us? You're only a half, which, one of the girls stated. It's not till why. I was the strange half, which who was given back and had a strained relationship with the alpha. I was taught by Jacob and Declan for years. I have the same skills as them. Instead of judging me, let me teach you, I answered, holding my nerves. The girl who questioned me crinkled her perfectly plucked eyebrows together but didn't say anything else. I started with the moves Jacob used against the burly man, going slow for them, but I was certain they knew what to do. I asked them to pair up and practice on each other. I watched as everyone found pairs. Eden received many invitations but declined them all. Her eyes constantly flickered at me. Her whole demeanor was vicious, how no one else could sense it was beyond me. Annoyingly, there was an odd number. Eden must have already known this and was waiting for her chance. She knew I'd had to pair up with her. It looks like we'd have to pair up, Eden said as she approached me, smirking wickedly. Her affections for Gabriel were stronger than I imagined. I had been alive long enough to know the glint in her brown orbs. She was hungry for my blood. She wanted to hurt me because I hurt her. Numbly, I nodded my head. The other women had already found empty spots in the field and were practicing what I taught them. I stepped away from Eden, creating space. She rolled her shoulders and neck and glared at me. I'm going to enjoy this. Before I had the chance to respond, her fist was smashing against my cheek. I stumbled backward and spat the blood out of my mouth. Quickly, I recovered and dodged her next attack. Fire aren't strong like wolves, we only had our magic, so I was relying on pure skill. I had trained with my brothers for years, working myself up to an elite level. Eden went for me again, but this time I saw her attack coming. I grabbed onto her upper arm and twisted her around. She released a shriek and kicked me in the abdomen. By now, we had caught the attention of a few people. They began to realize we weren't practicing. You stole him from me, she cried. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience and enthusiasm. As I lifted my head upwards, I noticed her eyes were full of unshed tears. She really did love Gabriel. And he, unknowingly, had led her on. He led her to believe he'd mate with her and she'd become the next Luna. Enthusiasm, in that instance. I felt sorry for her. I didn't know what it felt like to be led on like that, but by how irrationally she was acting, I could see it was torture. Eden. I said her name, steadily. Please stop this. She growled and punched me again. I didn't dodge her attack instead. I let her hit me. You're going to get him killed, she claimed, going for my throat. Still, I did nothing to stop her. You should have left as soon as you found out the truth. All I want to do is protect him and the pack. I managed to choke out as she tightened her hand. My face was probably turning a bright pink color by now. Liar, she snarled back, applying more pressure. I'm sorry this happened to you. I tried a different approach, wanting her to see my sincerity. I could escape her at any time with my magic, but what would that achieve? The pack would know the truth and Eden would only be angrier. She needed to come to terms with the truth. She needed to let her anger out and move on. This was the quickest way she could do that. Libby, Jacob yelled. From my peripheral vision, I spotted him barging through the crowd, Declan hot on his tail. I held up a hand and commanded with my eyes for him to stop. He frowned but stood in his spot, watching the scene unfold. Why are you not fighting back? Eden asked. She jolted my body, frustrated with my complicity. Fight? No, I denied her. Eden stared, and I mean stared, into the depths of my eyes. I saw all of her pent-up emotions flash in her orbs. It was like she was experiencing all of the stages of grief minus anger in one go. Her hold on my throat loosened as she got lost in her mind. Eden suddenly stumbled backward, darting her eyes away from me. Everyone stared at her in horror and worry. They had probably never seen this side of her before. Hell, even Eden had never seen this side before. I'm sorry. She muttered an apology and then sped off. She was gone in the blink of an eye. Using her werewolf speed, there was only silence from then onwards. Thankfully, Jacob cleared his throat and ordered everyone to get back to training. I sent him an appreciative look and rubbed my son's neck. It would bruise in a few moments and will take a few hours to heal. Hopefully, I won't see Gabriel at that time. I saw Gabriel an hour later. As I was grabbing water from the kitchen, he stormed into the room. His electrifying presence caused a tremor of fear to go through the kitchen staff. One look from Gabriel and they all scattered out of the kitchen, leaving us alone. I inhaled sharply and stood my ground. He rounded the counter and kept his eyes trained on my neck. When he was centimeters away from me, he let out a growl. I'm going to banish her from the pack, he announced. Suddenly, I had never seen this from him before. His anger was terrifying, but not to me. I knew he'd never hurt me. No, you won't, I argued, firmly. His eyes wide and he faltered. He didn't expect that kind of answer from me. He was expecting me to agree with him. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing Kishut's enthusiasm. Wouldn't anyone else want the person who strangled them to be punished? Liberty, did she knock your head too? She strangled you. She tried to kill you. He fought back in disbelief. He couldn't stop glancing at the bruises on my... I cursed my healing process, wishing it would happen quicker. She wasn't going to kill me. Gabriel. It was all at the moment. She needed to process her emotions and let them out. I was the scapegoat, but I don't care. I'm glad she used me, though another pack member. I explained, hoping he would drop it. I didn't want to argue with him. Our relationship was new and fragile. Gabriel released a tense breath. He slowly brought his hand up and caressed the bruises tenderly. I ignored the dull pain and braced the sparks. You shouldn't have used yourself like that, he murmured, peering up at me. I don't mind. I'll heal soon. I was the subject of her anger. She needed to have it out with me. The way Gabriel was staring at me made my heart skip a beat. He always hid his feelings from me, so I knew I had to cherish this moment. His sudden care and delicacy was rare for him. I fought the urge to pinch myself. I'm still going to punish her, he commented, darkly, going back to his original speech. You are not going to hurt her. I echoed. I will not speak to you if you physically hurt her. He snapped his grey orbs to me. You wouldn't do something as childish as that. I pinched my lips together and tilted my chin upwards. Try me. He assessed my expression and realized it was a possibility. His shoulders slumped in defeat whilst my lips quirked upwards in triumph. Knowing he would be so upset about me not speaking to him was what I needed to hear from him. He cared about me more than I thought. If only my brothers could see the truth. I will demote Eden to cooking or cleaning for a few months. That will be her punishment, he eventually revealed. I nodded my head in approval. Better. The corners of his lips quirked upwards. It was the closest I'd get to a smile. I was just glad he was not thinking about hurting Eden anymore. One day, he could come to regret it. They had been friends for so long I didn't want that to affect him in the future.